Great. Okay, so how we get started here today is first I have to read you a statement that I read to every single case. After that, I hand the case over to the case manager. Today, that's Miss Belinda Algeen. She'll go ahead and swear all the parties in, get through your names and spellings, and then we'll get started with taking testimony from you by the commissioners. Good morning and welcome to the Philadelphia Fair Housing Commission. As I stated before, my name is Allie D. Medeiros and I'm the attorney for the Fair Housing Commissioners. Also present with me today from the Fair Housing Commission staff is Miss Jomaris Castalmeda. She runs our Zoom hearings for us. You'll also see Miss Belinda Algeen. She is our case manager. Before we get started, there's a couple of things I'm required to go over with you. First, you're being recorded. We record all our hearings. By remaining on the line and participating in the hearing, you are consenting to be recorded. Our Zoom hearings have the same force and effect as if we were in person. The only difference is on Zoom, we do not have a court reporter. In the event either party wants to appeal a final order of this commission, you can reach out to me or the case manager, and we will provide you with a copy of the video recording. Please be mindful of what you're saying and doing because it is being recorded. Second, at 10 o'clock this morning, the commissioners and myself, the attorney, met in a private executive session to discuss today's cases. We do that every hearing day with every single case. Third, the parties had the opportunity to submit documents. I have the submitted documents saved on my computer and can share them with everyone on the screen. Please keep in mind that the commission generally only reviews the very basic documents in a case prior to a hearing. If you would like a document reviewed by the commission, please reference it by name, date, or description so that I can post it on the screen for everyone to look at the same time. Lastly, during the course of today's hearing, it might be necessary for the commissioners to speak privately to make decisions in this matter. If they need to do that, they will invite you to join separate rooms divided by party called breakout rooms. A prompt will come on your screen at the appropriate moment asking you if you would like to join a breakout room. We will direct you to click join when you see that prompt. Once in the breakout room, please remain in the room. We will never end a hearing when you are in a separate room. Please make sure you're back in this main room and that a commissioner or staff member dismisses you before you log off or hang up. Thank you very much for listening. With that, I'm going to hand the case over to Ms. Algeen.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Fair Housing Commission. This is the matter of Dana Carter versus Michael Young, Pelham Park Apartments, Jail Fund 1, 229 West Upsall, Philip LP, and GY Properties, Pelham Park Apartments. The Fair Housing Docket number is 2024-1223-19509, and this is the first Fair Housing hearing. At the time beginning with the tenant, if you can please state and spell your first and last name, and please speak slowly and clearly for the record.
Sure. My name is Dana Carter, spelled D-A-N-A. Last name is C-A-R-T-E-R.
Thank you. And counsel for tenant, can you please put your name on the record and state who you're representing?
Certainly. Good morning. This is Michael Cord, C-O-A-R-D, pro bono counsel for Dana Carter, the tenant.
Thank you. And property manager, can you please state and spell your first and last name and please speak slowly and clearly for the record?
Yes, first name is Amber, last name is Lyerly, A-M-B-E-R-L-Y-E-R-L-Y.
Thank you. And counsel for the property manager and landlord, can you please put your name on the record and state who you're representing?
Michael Adler from KBK Law Group representing GY Properties.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to swear the parties in. Can both tenant and the property manager please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can put your hands down. The commission has 3 rules for today's hearing. First, do not speak over or interrupt each other, and do not speak over or interrupt the commissioners. Each party will have an opportunity to give testimony and present evidence. Second, please do not use generic phrases such as he said and she said. Please use tenant stated or landlord stated or Mr. Carter stated. This will keep the record clear. And third, when referring to a date, please give the complete date, including the year. For example, please state the date as July 4th, 2024. Do not use just in July or last year or in 2024. The commissioners present today are Commissioner Baez and Commissioner Brunson. Thank you.
Hi, good morning and welcome to the Fair Housing Commission. We'd just like to state for the record that given that we are only a commission sitting of 2 commissioners, today we would not be able to reach a final order. I would like to start asking questions of the tenant regarding the complaint. I know that she's represented. Once I go through the complaint and provide the scope of today's hearing, then tenant's attorney may proceed with this case. Ms. Carter,
Yes,
you filed this complaint on December 23rd, 2024. Is that correct?
yes.
And can you please state for the record the property address that we're here to discuss?
229 West Upsall Street, Philadelphia, PA, 19119.
And are you still residing at the property?
Yes,
Okay, and when did you first move in?
August 27th, 2024.
According to the complaint, you are on a 1-year lease term?
Yes,
And what is the monthly rent?
$1,450.
And when was the last time that rent was paid to the landlord?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Does payment to escrow mean payment to the landlord?
No, it does not. So directly to the landlord. When was the last time that you paid the landlord?
October 2024.
Okay, and what have you done with the rent since paying it last in October?
I placed it in an escrow account.
Okay, and which months are you holding in escrow currently?
November, December, and January.
At the inception of the tenancy or any time thereafter, have you received a certificate of renter suitability?
Yes.
Okay, and when was that?
I believe it was when I initially signed the lease, which would have been on August 27th.
Okay, and regarding a Let's Safe certificate, have you been provided with that document?
Yes.
And was that also when you signed the lease?
Yes.
According to the complaint that you filed here with Fair Housing Commission, you are alleging that the landlord engaged in unfair rental practices for you asking to make repairs and then the landlord issuing you a notice to vacate.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I will allow your attorney to proceed with the case. Attorney Court, just make sure that you do not go over issues that I have got over unless they are being disputed.
That is fine. Thank you very much. Would I be able to proceed by simply asking follow-up questions to my client, Dana Carter?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Carter, you did answer the questions directly from the commissioner, but I just have a few follow-up. Would you explain specifically what is the basis of your complaint?
Sure. So initially when I moved in, there was a raw sewage smell, actually a poo smell in my apartment. And I notified the property manager here about the smell when we came into the apartment. Subsequently, I notified her in writing on September 4th that there was an issue with the ventilation and the sewage smell in the apartment bathroom. After that, on my own, I researched some housing codes, some residential housing codes, and I saw that apartment bathrooms in Philadelphia have to have exhaust fans. My apartment didn't have an exhaust fan. And also the bigger issue was the fact that there was a smell of sewage and fecal matter coming through the vents in the bathroom. Because my request to have that particular issue went unresolved after I gave them the written notification on September 4th, and having multiple conversations in person with the property manager here, I then
By the way, before you continue, would you provide the name of the property manager you spoke with?
Yes, Marlene Jacobs. And she gave me a number of things to do in order to resolve the issue, including to cover the vents. Myself with my own, okay, so she told me to cover the vents. And the reason she said that is because a tenant previously complained about the issue and she recommended they close the vents with.
Objection hearsay.
In fact, let's do this, Ms. Carter. The
Yes.
attorney objected based on hearsay. What I want you to do is just say what you did and what you said, not what somebody else said.
Sure.
So just let the commissioners know what you said, and if you have any written documentation from the property manager, you can reference that. But at this point, let's just say what you saw and what you experienced.
Sure. Okay. So, sometime around September the 11th or shortly thereafter, I would say after September the 11th, I went and have a conversation with the other person that is down in the management office. As a result of that conversation, a work order was put in to cover the vents in the bathroom and put in an exhaust fan. That was honored shortly after September the 11th. That didn't happen. So as a result of that, I sent a certified letter, I believe it was on October the 2nd, to GY Properties and the property manager here, Marlene Jacobs. There was no response. And so then I followed that up with another email sometime around the 14th of October. And all of these emails have been forwarded as a part of the evidence. And then that is when Ms. Lyerly responded, and that is when our conversations began via email about the issues that were going on in my apartment.
And at this point, Ms. Carter, since Ms. Lyerly is present, you can share with us what you said to her and what she said to you.
Sure. So in the initial correspondence in the letter, I outlined the violations that were in my apartment, the code violations that were in my apartment. And because there was no response to my request to get the issues fixed, I asked if I could start the process of terminating the lease, meaning the lease would I would want to vacate the property by the end of August. And I outlined all of the reasons why in the letter that I gave to Ms. Lyerly. Ms. Lyerly responded, I believe, after the second email, and she said that they, basically wanted to get everything taken care of. This is not verbatim, but, they wanted to get everything taken care of. Subsequent messages, Ms. Lyerly said that they would have environmental testing done on the property. Someone from ServPro would come and give an assessment. And she also offered the option of switching units. I told Ms. Lyerly I was willing to explore any available option. I'm willing to work with them. Ms. Lyerly also stated that she would give me daily updates about what was going on. And after that, I didn't hear from them for a few days. So I then contacted Ms. Lyerly again, and I don't really remember what happened in that particular email, but we all had that on evidence. ServPro came. ServPro came with the maintenance man, and ServPro. Okay, so I can't tell you what happened when ServPro came.
Well, you can't tell us what ServPro said, but you can tell us what ServPro did.
Sure. Sir, the individuals from ServPro came, had a conversation with the maintenance engineer. They had that conversation in my apartment, and as a result, that's all that they did. They just had a conversation.
Let me ask, what was the issue resolved as a result of that that initial ServPro visit?
No, there was nothing resolved, and actually nothing was actually done during that conversation. After that, Ms. Lyerly said that the environmental specialist had to come, this is via email, had to come another day because the initial date, which I believe was on the 23rd, they weren't able to make it. So then they came the next day. The person from the environmental specialist company, I don't know the name of the company. When the environmental specialist came, I told the environmental specialist about the issues, very specifically that when a toilet flushes, one or more toilet flushes in my stack, that there is a sewage smell that comes through the vent. But also, even when somebody doesn't flush the toilet, if somebody's having a bowel movement, that comes through the vents as well. So as a result of the ServPro, which happened a few days before the environmental specialist, the maintenance team began installing the exhaust fan, and they actually began a process of covering the vents. I believe it was that that day that the environmental specialist came is when they began covering the vents.
So I'm sorry, if I may, we do not need to go through every minutia detail as far as
Okay.
what they did. We just need to understand if any actions were taken.
Okay,
That's all. We don't need to know every single thing that happened.
sure.
Thank
So
you,
the,
Mr. Commissioner. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that. So ultimately, they did install the exhaust fan and they covered both of the vents. One of the vents had to be uncovered because when they covered it, they came back the next day to finish the job and they noticed that the wall was extremely hot under the vent. So whatever was behind that wall was building up, and so they had to uncover the vent in order to prevent whatever they thought was going to happen as a result from both vents being covered and the wall getting very warm. So they uncovered the vent, they installed the fan. L&I wound up coming. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to go over to the environmental specialist report or what the environmental specialist did, or that would be a little bit too much?
No need to go into the particulars, but was the issue resolved as a result of whatever the environmental specialist did?
Partially.
Before we
So
go-
they did install an exhaust fan, but they never addressed the issue with the hydrogen sulfide coming through the vents.
Let me ask this very, very quickly.
Sure.
When did you initially notice what you described as a raw sewage smell? And I believe you also mentioned results of bowel movements and fecal matter. When did you initially notice that?
August 27th.
Was that when you first moved in?
Yes.
Did you say anything to any representative of the apartment complex when you first noticed it?
Yes. I said it to Miss Marlene Jacobs because she was the one who brought me into my apartment.
And
I
don't tell me what Miss Jacobs said, but what did she do when you told her that?
She opened all of the windows in the apartment and turned on both air conditioners.
I just have a very few additional questions. The problem you described, does it still exist?
Yes.
If you know, and only if you know, was L&I, Department of License and Inspections, ever contacted?
Yes.
Don't tell us what they said, but do you know the result of their visit?
They issued 3 violations.
Just a few final questions before I wrap this up. Did you provide the Fair Housing Commission with documentation surrounding what you're referencing?
Yes. They just put it up on the screen. That is that's what it looks like online, but I also sent them the actual violation report.
Okay. I do mean a few more questions, just a few. Somebody else trying to speak?
Right, this is Commissioner Bias. I'm just saying that just for the record, we do have an L&I report. That report number or the case number is CF 2024-115593. It shows that there were violations opened on October the 29th of 2024. And it shows that there are sorry, Alec, can you scroll down? How many total violations are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Appears that there are 6 violations that are open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. At present, Ms. Carter, that odor that you described, does it still exist?
Yes.
When did you initially file your Fair Housing Commission complaint?
I believe it was December 23rd.
And at any point, have you received from the apartment complex a notice to vacate?
Yes.
When did you receive that? Was that before or after you filed your complaint? If you recall.
It was before I filed the complaint.
Okay. Let me see. Have you ever seen or received?
I'm sorry. Just it was after I received the notice to quit after I submitted the information to L&I, but before the Fair Housing Commission complaint.
Thank you for that clarification. So you contacted L&I, you then received a notice to quit, and then you contacted the Housing Commission.
Yes.
All right. Have you ever seen or received from the apartment complex a valid renter's license?
No, I never saw that. I've never seen a valid rental license. I did see the license number on the rental sustainability, um, um,
So
form.
just so that, just for the sake of time, this is something that you can just cross when the landlord brings up that testimony. It doesn't need to come.
Thank you very much. And one final question. In regard to the environmental testing that was done by the apartment complex, Ms. Carter, have you received or seen any of those documents, any of those reports?
No, I only know from what he said, which I can't say. So no.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. I have nothing else.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Adler, would you like to cross?
Sure. Ms. Carter, did your landlord ever offer you the opportunity to move units?
Yes. Well, they never followed that up. There was an initial offer.
I just asked you a yes or no question.
It's not
Well,
really,
she's permitted to follow up after answering that question, which is
Right.
exactly what she did.
right. So yes, they did initially offer that, but there was no follow-up when I agreed to explore that option.
Ms. Carter, did your landlord ever offer you the opportunity to be released from your lease without penalty?
Yes, with conditions.
No further questions.
Brief follow-up. What conditions were they, Ms. Carter?
The conditions that my landlord agreed to.
Yes. Well, not so much agreed to, but offered.
So it was a termination of the lease with a 30-day notice. They agreed to let me keep the money that was in escrow. They agreed to I think that was really all that they were offering.
Beyond that, in terms of what they offered, what else were you requiring or requesting?
I was requesting moving expenses because I can't stay in this apartment with that smell and the hydrogen sulfide coming through. And they also said that they were going to keep the security deposit in the last month's rent that I paid when I initially signed the lease.
And just so we're clear, you might have answered this, but just so we're clear, the problem you complained about, the raw sewage smell continues to exist today.
Yes, every day.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Adler, you may present your case.
Ms. Lyerly, when were you presented with complaints about the unit?
It was October 2024.
And what remediation steps did you take?
We contacted an environmentalist. We also contacted ServPro to have this evaluated, and we installed a exhaust fan.
Approximately how much did that cost to have environmentalists come, have ServPro come out?
There was a total for labor and material for the vent fan was $1,000, and for the environmentalist was $1,600.
Have you personally visited the unit?
Yes.
Did you detect any smell?
No.
Had you previously received complaints from that unit about smell prior to Ms. Carter living there?
No.
Have you had any other units that people have complained about a similar smell?
No.
Were there any other remediations offered to the tenant? You offered to let them out of the lease or offered to move them to a different unit?
The option was to transfer the lease agreement, to transfer to another unit, or to be vacate the lease agreement.
Has the tenant attempted to demand money from you?
Yes, for moving calls.
L&I violations were presented to the committee. To the best of your knowledge, are those cleared?
Yes, those are clear.
So they're not marked cleared on the L&I website as of yesterday. Do you have a clearance, Mr. Adler?
I do not, but we'll check for that shortly.
Okay.
Is there, Ms. Lyerly, is there anything else you want to present?
Yes, I have talked to Brandon, which is the inspector of this. Unfortunately, he did let me know he is the only person, the inspector, so that's why it's taken him longer to close these inspections, but upon.
So for clarity, did Brandon come and re-inspect the property yet, or are we waiting?
No, he was looking at the extremely low octaves that were presented from the environmentalist report and the installation of the new vent.
Okay, so is he planning on re-inspecting? Are we waiting for that? or-
No, he just needed to verify that the extremely low octaves on the environmentalist test.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adler, you're a witness.
So, Ms. Lyerly, do you have any, you've offered to let the tenant vacate the units, you've offered to transfer them to units, transfer them to new units. How much does the tenant owe in back rent as of today?
As of today, we have a current balance of $6,072.
No further questions.
So, Mr. Adler, the only question that commission would like to ask your client would be one of the license. Is there an active license for this property?
There is an active license for this property.
You have a copy of the active license. Again, yes, as of yesterday, you guys were marked expired on the city's system.
I can definitely present that to
Okay.
Michael.
Okay, we'll send that over.
So I need the clearance from L&I and a copy of the current rental license, please.
Okay.
Don't know if Commissioner Brunson has any questions for either party.
I do not.
I will allow tenant's attorney to cross, if he has any cross for.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Ms. Lyerly.
Good morning.
Just a few questions. You say that you have never detected any smell, any odor at the unit.
Yes.
Are you aware of correspondence that was issued by your attorney dated November 21, 2024, where he references, quote, let me make sure I get this quote precisely correct. The odor is of minimal risk, unquote. Are you aware of that documentation?
Yes.
So if the attorney references odor being of minimal risk, that would assume an odor. And if it does assume an odor, how have you not smelled it?
Essentially there are odors that some people can detect and some ones cannot. And the environmentalist, it basically corroborates the environmentalist information that the octaves are extremely low for the unit. So it's not evading that there is an odor, but none of us can smell it. Both myself, my property manager, my maintenance manager, the Serve Pro technician, he was not able to detect anything as well.
How then could you elaborate on that? How then could your attorney, I assume based on information provided by you, reference that one, there is an odor, and two, it causes some risk, minimal, but some risk. So let me back up. How do you explain your counsel referencing an odor? That's the first question.
He is referencing the odor presented by Ms. Diane Carter. We are basically corroborating that she's presenting an odor. So essentially we did not smell it, but if she is detecting it, then we have to go with what the resident is saying.
Okay, so what about the minimal risk, the risk part? Why does your attorney reference a risk resulting from this odor?
This is the information that is presented by the environmentalist. So Ms. Carter could smell something that none of us can physically detect. And this was corroborated as well by the environmentalist.
The environmentalist, was that person, that company retained by Ms. Carter or by Pelham Park Apartments?
By Pelham Park Apartments.
Interesting. Okay, and just so we're clear, you're saying that Pelham Park Apartments does have an official rental license, is that correct?
Yes, we do have a rental license.
And you're saying that every one of the violations as of today are clear, is that correct?
Per Mr. Brandon Banks, who is the inspector, I spoke to him. Well, he informed me that the violations will be removed once evidence has been submitted. Unfortunately, he did let me know he is the only inspector for that area right now.
Why do you reference Ms. Carter owing over $6,000 in rent when you know, I assume, that that amount has been timely submitted into escrow?
Essentially, even though it has been submitted into escrow, it has not been submitted to us as a property management company. So it would be deemed that she does owe the rent until we solve until we continue through court.
But just so we're clear, you are aware that the monies have been placed in escrow in the full amount on a timely basis. You are aware of that.
Council, so this is the non-issue whether or not we understand that the tenant is placing money into escrow. We do not need to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. With that, I have nothing else.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Don't know if parties want to give a very brief closing remarks. Both parties do have the opportunity to do that. And as I stated before, given that there are only two commissioners, a third commissioner will have to hear the recording. So this will be the last opportunity for councils to present with any last statements that they wish for the commissioners to consider when we are deliberating this matter.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Ms. Carter, I thank the commission for hearing this. And very briefly, in less than 30 seconds, I would simply request that the commission review the documentation that was provided by Ms. Carter as exhibits, and in all fairness, any documentation, if any, submitted by the apartment complex. And I think those documents will speak for themselves. I understand that the testimony given today was under oath, and I'm not accusing anybody of lying or committing perjury or engaging in deceptive testimony. But I will say the testimony on behalf of the apartment complex was quite incredible. And I would argue, in fairness to the apartment complex, unintentionally misleading. For the question to be posed about monies owed by Ms. Carter, the complex knows, even though it's not a relevant point to the issue, but knows that she is paid on time, and to say that they detected no smell, despite the fact that their counsel, based on information received from them, does. I would simply request that the issues raised by Ms. Carter be accepted as true, and that the commission rule in her favor. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mr. Adler.
As the commission knows, money paid into escrow is not money that is not due to the apartment complex. That would be money that would be an issue to be litigated at a court of relevant jurisdiction. The fact that my client mentioned that there's money due is completely relevant and would obviously be brought up. My client has shown that they made every effort to remediate the tenant's issues, or the tenant's complaints. The tenant is still asking for money, not just money to be waived, but money to be paid to them. They're seeing this as an opportunity to extort my client for additional money.
I would strongly object. Extortion is a crime.
Mr. Court, this is
That's outrageous.
He's just disclosing.
My client is fully in compliance with all relevant rental laws. We would hope to resolve this quickly, but we were unable to reach a settlement before this. There's nothing else my client could do to make this acceptable for the tenants. They offered to let the tenant out of the lease. They offered to move the tenant to another unit. Apparently that was not acceptable, so we're here.
Okay, I thank both parties for your cooperation. At this time, we are going to be taking this matter under advisement. We will need for the parties to submit proof of the L&I compliance, and also any current rental licenses from the landlord, and also a copy of the environmental report. Okay, with that, thank you all for being here today. Once the commission reaches an order, we will communicate that to the parties. With that, you are free to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.